Are you an adventurer looking to take your hunt to the next level? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to East Meets West Hunt with your host, Beau Martonik.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the East Meets West Hunt podcast presented by Onyx. On this episode, I am joined by Devin Duncan, an extremely passionate and successful turkey hunter in the Appalachian Mountains of Virginia. Devin and I talk about the experience of hunting gobblers in hill country, e-scouting for turkeys on public land, dealing with henned-up gobblers, a few stories, and much more. This podcast is brought to you by Onyx. The Onyx Hunt app is your premier GPS hunting app that turns your phone into a working GPS. Using some of the tips that you'll learn in today's episode, you can use the app to e-scout turkeys and make the most of your time out in the field. I also love roosting gobblers in the evenings and marking their locations to slip into closely in the morning. If you want to check out the Onyx Hunt app for yourself, head over to onyxmaps.com and use the coupon code EMW to save 20%. Tethered is a company that is founded on the principles of educating the hunting community on saddle hunting, while creating the most innovative, lightweight, safe products for saddle hunting. And I'm currently using the Phantom saddle system with a Predator platform on all of my mobile hunts. Ever since I started using the saddle, it's really tough for me to want to try anything else. It's so lightweight, packable, and for going deep into the big woods or the mountains or really anywhere on public land, it's hard to really want to do anything else. But to learn more about tethered and saddle hunting, head over to tetherednation.com. Maven is building the highest quality optics at half of the price of their competitors through their direct-to-consumer business model. They just want the best optics in the job, period. So I'm using the B3 8x30 binos on all of my eastern hunts, including turkey hunting. You won't catch me breaking over the top of a ridge without covering the ground slowly with my optics first. You can use the coupon code eastmeetswest-gift for a free gift with any full price optics order at mavenbuilt.com. And Spartan Forge. Hunters require an accurate forecast of the best hunting days and hunting spots to save time on scouting and actually executing the hunts. The Spartan Forge outfitter utilizes years of military background and machine learning to pull from millions of data points to accurately predict deer movement, including GPS data, 30 years of weather, academic, state research, social media, and so much more. They're using science rather than someone's opinion to figure out the movement for your specific hunting area. You can use the code eastmeetswest to save 25% off of the outfitter at spartanforge.ai. All right, so this week I do not have a mountain buck story of the week. I'm actually going to be taking a little time off as this comes out here. I will be probably sitting somewhere warm with a drink in my hand. And yes, it doesn't matter if you're listening to this in the morning or the evening. The results could be the same. So taking a little time off to, I guess just step away a little bit and enjoy some time in the sun. But so I'll definitely be back with that next week. But I'm going to stay off social media and everything during that time frame. So not going to be posting any pictures for the Mountain Buck Monday then, so I'll definitely bring it back the following week. But I do have some really exciting news here. So recently I've been invited as a guest speaker for an incredible online event that's designed to inspire you to build your next business. So the Founder Speaker Series is a 12-week event with impactful founders from the hunting industry. So each week you'll have a chance to join myself and the other guests to hear our entrepreneurial stories, learn how we built our businesses from the ground up essentially, and then participate in a live Q&A to get your questions answered. So there's limited seating for this online event, so be sure to join the wait list, which the registration will go live on April 22nd. So I'll put a link in the podcast notes here so you can take a look at that. But I hope to really see you there. If you have any interest in starting a business or having a side gig in the hunting industry or really any business in general, I think you'll be able to pull a lot from this. The guests that they have are incredible. And I'm just excited to be a part of that list. So I think it's going to be fun. It's going to be informational, definitely jam-packed full of stuff, and tune in, learn from the other guests in the series. I know I will be tuning in to take part in the other guest speakers as well, to be able to listen to it. So anyways, check out that link that I have in the podcast notes here, or you can go to my social media. I'll probably send out an email blast by this time too, so you can check that out. Click on the link and see if you're interested. But anyways, like I said, I'll be gone this week here, but right when I get back, be a week before turkey hunting, and I cannot wait. I haven't put much time into scouting turkeys, but I normally don't. But I deer hunt in a lot of areas where there's turkeys, so I've found some turkeys, marked them that week before. I'll definitely put some time out there and trying to locate some birds and see what time I have available. It's going to be a tough year for me getting some time to turkey hunt. Just trying to move around some other priorities so that I can use the time to spend in the fall. But I'll be honest, I love the sunrises and turkey season, the nice warm weather, and here in Gobbles. I mean, it's an awesome time to be in the woods. It really is. So really looking forward to that. And that's why I brought on Devin Duncan, who is just, he's not like me, who I wouldn't consider I'm not any sort of great turkey hunter. He is incredibly talented. He works really hard at it. He's obsessed with it. I mean, this guy knows his stuff. So I am glad to be able to interview Devin here and talk about hunting turkeys in the Appalachian Mountains. Enjoy. All right, Devin Duncan, welcome to the show, man. How are you?
Good, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to get to talk to you. We've been chatting back and forth on Facebook and Instagram for a while. I've been following your page on Facebook, Mountain Hunters Virginia there, and I feel like I know you, but not really.
Yeah, I mean, I keep up with you too. A lot of people follow you, so same birds, the same feather. You know what I'm saying?
Yep, I hear you. It's
mountain boy.
Yep, exactly. Just a little bit. Yeah, where are you at? Down in Southern Virginia?
Southwest, like central Virginia, kind of to the west part of the state.
Okay, nice. I did a lot of work down there. I'd spend time down. You don't have to tell me exactly where you're at, so no one knows where you're at. But I know that, like, I was spending time down by Stewart's Draft and Waynesboro and those areas. I didn't live down there,
that's
but
kind of in the Blue Ridges.
Yeah, I spent some time down there for a while. Beautiful country all through Virginia, really. But it's
a lot of beautiful country. Populations in the mountains are kind of, deer and turkeys kind of dropped a lot. Of course, it's being seen all over the United States, but I mean, I've been watching it for probably over a decade here, but which sometimes some mornings you'll be hunting and you think it's a shame because it's some of the most beautiful country to work a turkey in and hunt mountain bucks, but you're born and raised in it. It's kind of in your blood, and you really wouldn't have it any other way. I mean, I'd like to experience some other things as far as I love traveling to turkey hunt, but it seems like it's really our mountains aren't the habitat isn't really super diverse, and I don't know if that's a major role. I feel like it's a major role in a lot of our decline, but I don't know. The population boomed there when I'll be 32 this August. So in the early 90s, late 80s and early 90s, the populations boomed, and right not long after that, in the late 90s and early 2000s, the coyotes really moved in thick. So some of the federal lands, the loggers kind of had to jump through hoops there, like in the late 90s. I think the tree huggers and stuff kind of made some waves, and so some of the timber cutting slowed down for a while, but it's picking back up. and so that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's one of the things I noticed when I spent time. I know I'm not in exactly where you're at, but down there wasn't, at least in the area I was, there was no timber cutting. And I know
Yeah,
talking to Jason Red and even Nathan Killen and some other people I know that are down that way and everything says it's not very active, and there's a lot of political reasons behind that.
I think it's getting a little better. I mean, the one thing that I mean, I'll take any cutting and stuff, but what kind of irks me is that it seems like when we do get some cuts, it seems like they're right along the government roads.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
not like they're these old logging roads that go way back into the mountains. It's not like that stuff. It's kind of big and mature and needs harvested, select cut, and 50-acre, 100-acre clear cut here and there scattered out. But I guess they trying to make it the most efficient in and out cut they can. And it would be nice if some of those old logging roads could get opened up with a bulldozer and they go back in there a mile from the roads and put the habitat diversity, wildlife openings, clear cuts, select cuts, and everything back in the mountains a little ways away from the roads.
So yeah, you were saying about we broke up there a little bit, but you were saying that about the logging cuts being along the roads, and I mean, I guess it makes sense for the loggers because it's like, and I don't know, or the foresters and stuff, like, why do we need to go all the way back when it's mature all over and we can get these easy ones next to the road and more efficient, probably make more money on it?
Yeah, I mean, it's common sense. It's done like that,
Yeah.
Money, most efficient way in and out.
Yeah, and I know a little bit about the type of area you hunt, but for the listeners, talk about the type of the terrain. You talked a little bit about the habitat, but give like paint a picture a little bit about where you like to hunt turkeys, deer, whatever at.
Well, there's certainly a lot rougher and higher peaks and terrains and like the Smoky Mountains in North Carolina, East Tennessee and West North Carolina, the Pisgah. It's big, but there's some big country. I know it's quite our terrain. I know that the northern part of Pennsylvania is big country, but from topos I've looked at and videos I've watched, I know it can be steep, but it seems like it's like an older vein of the mountain and it has a little more roll to it.
Yep.
Here the mountains have a vein to them. They run from the southwest to the northeast, and the mountains kind of have a top to them and have a vein. And it gets up close to 5,000 feet, 4,500, 4,000 feet in places. Around here, like 4,000, 4,500 is kind of the highest peaks. But I think we're mainly talking about, spring gobblers. There's mountains that you'll find birds on top for, certainly. But it seems like earlier in the year, they tend to be lower down. I guess because things are starting to, will green up earlier.
Yep.
And creeks and stuff. So, it goes back to, it seems like wherever there's the slightest little bit of habitat diversity, that you'll find little pockets of turkeys. And turkeys to thrive need those things in a close proximity for them to really thrive.
Yep.
So when your habitat isn't quite as diverse, they get to traveling a little more, and it's stressful on them. But when you find those areas that have just, you key in on private property, always, look for cattle fields where they come out and peck, out in the grass and bugs and cow patties and stuff. You can kind of get back in behind that country, kind of the things you key in on deer hunting. I know you've had podcasts with Nathan. He mentioned that.
Yep.
Nathan Killen about, kind of, that's something you can e-scout and course, places like that, you might run into more hunters too, because everybody's kind of looking at the same thing. So
yeah. And one thing you said, I don't mean to cut you off, but I know that you're talking about like the terrain differences, and like for me spending some time down there, like we have definitely what I would consider mountainous hills or whatever you want to call it, but you have definitely a lot more elevation. And also we have like kind of the plateau type country too. Like, so our tops can be miles across that are flat. And then all of a sudden you have some steep drop offs where just looking at the maps and driving through it, you definitely have more like not Rocky Mountain type peaks, but you have a lot more of that type of style. Like you were saying, the veins to them.
Yeah. Not very rarely am I going to pull 1,000 feet, elevation gain in turkey season. Maybe over the course of a day, cutting if I plan out a big long hunt, from point A to point B around the side of a mountain. But by the time the day's over with cutting ridges and hollers, I might walk that. But deer hunting, I know Nathan's mentioned, it's not uncommon for us to have to pull 1,000 foot before daylight. And people out west, in the Rockies, they'll probably, laugh at us when we say 1,000 foot. And, you might go a mile or 3 miles, a mile to 3 miles, and anywhere from 1,000 to 1,500 foot of gain, and in some places. But when you do that day after day after day,
that's wears on you.
Yeah, it wears down. After I'm young and in shape, and after 3 or 4 days of doing that hunting hard, it's like, man. But I wouldn't have it any other way. It's born and bred in me. I guess maybe to tell people a little bit about myself.
Yeah, definitely.
My dad was a diehard turkey hunter, and he started me when I was 5 years old. So this spring will be my 26th spring gobbler hunting. And of course, the older I got and got driver's license, the more that I could, go, to be able to take myself, and as I got settled in life. But this will be my 26th spring turkey hunting. And just so the listeners know, I'm nobody special. I'm just a normal guy, blue collar guy, work for a living. I just love spring gobbler hunting. I get quite a bit more time to hunt than a normal guy. I work shift work, so it's DuPont schedule kind of stuff, rotating 12-hour shifts where you get a long 7-day break once a month, and you work like 7 days of daylight and 7 days of night, and off 3, work 4 kind of stuff. So, if everything's good with my boy, family responsibilities, and I'm free, like night shift, I get off night shift, I can turkey hunt every morning until we can hunt till noon the first 3 weeks of season. And then the last 2 weeks of season we can hunt all day. But I have my days off, and then plus every morning after night shift I can be I get off at 6 a.m. and I'm normally hunting somewhere by 7 a.m.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, I mean, which it's I've had a lot of success getting off night shift. It's kind of like I don't know, I kind of say in my mind, like, it's kind of like God picking me where to go, because you go and everybody else has already got their, out there before daylight and got their spots. So I kind of pick and go through, and then I can see where I find me a place nobody's at. And then, I go from there. And if I'm tired and wore down and been hunting for 2 or 3 weeks and working night shift and shift work and raising a boy and stuff, and if I'm tired, I might be lazy some days, and if I'm just wore out, I'll utilize the vehicle, ride government roads, stop and listen, make short little walks. There's lots of places that gets overlooked that people won't get out of the vehicle if they can't hear it from the road. A lot of people, they just won't walk up over a ridge or something. And you can, if you take, it might not take you 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes to check something. Just pull over and there's a ridge blocking a bunch of country behind it. And you can't hear it from the road. If you just take 5, 10, 15 minutes to get to the top of that ridge, and I'll make little short walks like that in between stopping and listening. And I've had a lot of success doing that. And another thing, like, I guess the term is like road hunting, when you're not hunting from the vehicle, but, riding and stopping and listening and trying to strike gobbler up, is I'll stand there for 15 minutes before I call lots of times and just listen. And, many times just standing there waiting and letting things play out. And a gobbler will start gobbling, or I'll hear, a gobbler start gobbling on his own. And I hadn't even made a call yet. And then I listen, he gobbled 2, 3, 4 times on his own. Then I'll make a game plan move to him, and I still hadn't called yet. And, if you get lucky and get one of those good, which is getting seem harder and harder to find, like a textbook good gobbling turkey gobbling on his own, it seems like it's getting harder and harder to find. But you find one, you can just keep slipping your way in there to him. And before you even call, get exactly where you want to be and just take your time moving in on him. If he goes quiet for a little bit, just sit there and wait, and I'll just wait on him. And after saying that, when I was younger and time was a little more limited, I was like running, trying to find a gobbling turkey. I got to make something happen. I was an apprenticeship and working, and I remember like 1 or 2 seasons where I just had weekends. And in Virginia, you can only hunt, you can't hunt public land on Sundays. So basically I would have Saturday and I wouldn't be hunting none through the weeks. I didn't have tabs on the birds, where they've been hanging out at, have an idea of what they're doing. I can't, I'm going, even my stomping ground's blind. So I was always in a rush. I felt like under pressure trying to make something happen when I found a turkey, and I'd mess. Of course, I was younger then too. I'd kill turkeys, but I messed turkeys up that I shouldn't have messed up, by limited time. And as I got older and got more settled and got into this shift work and had more time, I really came into myself as a turkey hunter when I had more time to hunt, because I could slow down. And I don't mean slow down as not hunting hard or sitting around deer hunting turkeys. Just mean like I could take my time with a gobbler.
Being patient a little bit.
Be more, and over the last 5 years, especially last year and the last couple of years, the more the populations drop off, and it's kind of like when I find a gobbler, I'll hunt him until I kill him, because it's like I know where a bird's at, and I know he's there, and I don't want, I'll hunt him 2 or 3 days. If I don't kill him, then I'll move on, or will kill him. But I kind of will spend more time on turkeys, and just how I move through the woods and everything, my whole process. I guess I consider myself a running gun turkey hunter.
Yep.
Just, I don't care how good of a turkey hunter you are or how much, you got to have time. That's with anything, and that's really helped me is having a little bit more time to hunt over the last couple of years. And so, I mean, people see me killing turkeys and all that, but it takes time to stick with them. And I could be working a gobbler, for example, one morning, and maybe he shuts up on me, but while I was hunting him, a half mile away on a ridge, a gobbler gobbled 2 or 3 times, and maybe that's all he gobbled, or maybe he was over there hammering. But now I know where he's at, and he just needs it, and I'll keep, I may not be able to do it at the moment while I'm working at turkey, but as soon as that hunt's over and I'm sitting there thinking about what happened and how he got away, I'll get my phone out and I'll mark that gobbler where he gobbled, and then that's kind of the thing with having time to hunt and being able to keep tabs on turkeys. And I remember I think it was about 4 springs ago, me and my dad both hunted. It was 2 gobblers, and they was probably about a mile by the crow from each other around the side of the mountain. And we both hunted. We didn't actually hunt the birds together, but we both hunted them separately several times throughout first, second, third week of season. And they had hens, and I wouldn't waste much time on them after I figured them out. I could tell that they still had their hens, and I would move on. But I was like, one of these mornings, I want to catch these turkeys alone. And my father-in-law at the time, we went to a place and had a gobbler gobble really good, and came from one mountain, crossed private property, across the creek, across the hardtop road, and come on our eye, but once he got it, we thought this girl, he was going to run at the gun barrel, but he flanked us and moved off. And just one of those crazy turkeys that just gobbles and just keeps going and out of country.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, there's 2 gobblers down around the mountain that been fooling with a little bit off and on. We'll go check on them. And really didn't think much about it at the time. I thought, if I did get them to gobble, they'd probably be doing the same thing, be henned up. And they was actually, the one was by, had totally lost his hens and actually had ganged up with 2 other jakes. And worked that bird in. My father-in-law killed him, and we high-fived and sat there and took a couple pictures. And I said, well, we'll get back here to the truck. I was just nonchalant about, like, we'll go around here and check on this other gobbler. And knew the area he run. He was staying right in that country the whole time. And went around there, and sure enough, he gobbled. And it wasn't 15 minutes, and he was dead.
But yeah, a couple of things that you had said there about like having the time and being on them. And one of the things that I've learned is I don't have I usually just have Saturdays to hunt, or I might be able to get like an hour before work, depending on what time I have to be there that day. But what I've learned is even on the days that I can't hunt necessarily in the morning, I'll still go out and listen. And I'll mark spots, and then the same thing in the evening. I'll go out and, because we're the same way. The first few weeks of the season, it's only till noon, and then the second half of the season, you can hunt all day. But I'll just go out and listen and mark those birds and try to figure out each day kind of how they're moving, where they're roosting at. And then when I do have my chance, you at least kind of have an idea what they've been doing, rather than just going out that one day a week and trying to figure it out. And if they're quiet on the roost, that day before, then you're kind of screwed as far as you're trying to, locate them while you're hunting, essentially.
Yeah. I imagine a lot of people could relate that when you're hunting your home turf and your stomping grounds, somewhere where you have more time to hunt, you'll probably hunt it a little different than if you go out of state for a 2 or 3 day run, leave on a Thursday and hunt Friday, Saturday, Sunday morning and come back home, a little short, out of state getaway for the weekend or something. I kind of change how I hunt because I'm on limited time. I'm probably not ever going to be back there again for the rest of the year, so I don't want to try to my stomping grounds and stuff. I have time to try not to spook them and or make them smarter or anything like that. But when I'm out of state, it's not necessarily running through the woods crazy, but I'll be a little more aggressive.
Yep.
And I'll be aggressive on birds, locally when it's time to make a move on them. But yeah.
And you'd said something earlier on about like kind of the habitat you're looking for turkeys and stuff. But like if you're going to one of these new spots out of state or even in your home state, what are you looking for as far as on a map? Like you look at a big area, you got a national forest or whatever. How are you kind of finding areas that you want to mark and go take a look at to hopefully find birds?
Yeah, I mean, the topic's kind of been beat to death, on podcasts and stuff, and it's all kind of around about the same thing. But water, is one of the first things I look at. Creeks, and because turkey's got to have water, and so that's something. And there's lots of water that you can't see on a map. If you're getting rain, you run off creeks that will be plenty of water in them. And other times of year they're dried up, but access. I don't want too many roads because I've been to places I've been places out of state when I was it was the first time I was ever been there, and I thought it looked really good. But once I got there was roads everywhere. So it was like, even if I found a gobbler, there could be someone else on the other road, a mile by the crow, could be hearing that gobbler and be coming into him from the other side, and I never could tell if I was working a turkey by myself. Yeah. So you want some access, some trails and stuff like that, but I don't want too much access. But then again, you want to be in birds. So yeah. It's like walking a fine line, literally, of trying to But lots of times if I'm going somewhere new, of course I have friends, we talk and communicate, and I'm not really the person. I don't want someone to drop a pin and say there's a gobbler roosted here. Might discuss areas or things like that, but I still want the sense of kind of doing it myself.
Yep.
But lots of times when I'm going somewhere new, I'll just, find the closest place from me traveling from my home to whichever state. I'll kind of pay attention to the closest stuff that I can drive to first into that state. And I'll make a game plan and try something. I just tell myself, no, after a day or two, if it ain't going good or just not having any luck, then I'll drive a little further. So I kind of, until I find a honey hole or a pocket of birds, I'll check out the closest things to me first. And really sometimes you just got to quit. If you look at maps, after a while, you start driving yourself crazy. You only look at them so long to when you got to go just put boots on the ground. And a lot of that's just good old fashioned finding a high listening point and get in there before day. And it may be from the truck. The best place to listen might be right at the truck, or hunting public does it a lot. They're not bashful about utilizing the vehicle. Sometimes that may be your best bet when you're going somewhere new, is cover a bunch of ground right at that peak gobbling time in the morning, and locate some gobbling turkeys, and then make a plan. And if it don't work out, where another one was, and so on.
Instead of investing all your time and hiking into an area and then realizing it's not the best, or there's one bird, and you have options where you can work from the road a little bit.
Yeah, and then like do that. I mean, if you find a gobbler, of course you're going to go after him, but do that for a little bit, that peak gobbling time, and try to get some ears on some birds. And then in the middle of the day, when it gets hotter, and the action's slowing down, then that's when I'll do a lot of parking and walking back into places. Kind of, I'm hunting, and if it's a state that you can hunt all day, of course I'm going to be hunting and moving through the woods at, hunting. I'm not just blundering and making a bunch of noise. I'm going to be hunting, but that's when I'll plan out a little 2-3 mile loop and make a loop, and then work my way back, get in the truck, go hit another spot, and make another little 2 or 3 mile, loop, and hopefully strike a gobbler up and get to engage with a gobbler and work him in hunting. And if it works out and you kill him, you got to be really adaptable. You got to just adapt to what's happening, because sometimes the weather might not. If you're a traveling turkey hunter, there's gonna be times when the weather just don't work for you, and it's bad time, but
what about
where I was trying to go with it?
What about with what about with the terrain? Is there anything that you point out from that, whether it's a flat spot on a ridge or anything along those lines? You tend to find those birds in some of that steeper country hanging out, and anything in relation to terrain?
I pay attention to flat areas that kind of, I know it's such a loaded question, really.
Yeah, I know that was, but I guess, I guess if there's anything specific, I know there's so many different scenarios and variables, but in general, what are you kind of focusing on, or you tend to find turkeys with any certain terrain in general, or maybe not?
Yeah, I mean, you're looking for them little knobs. Turkeys like a little piney knob. Flat spots, where they'll if you're in a mountainous terrain, I'll look for a bench that runs around the side of a mountain where they're going to hang out and strut and spend some time, because lots of times early in the year, when they're henned up and stuff, they don't hit the ground, and majority of the time these turkeys ain't hitting the ground and just taking off crazy. Majority of the time early in the year, from where they're roosted, I would be willing to bet they don't move more than 200 or 300 yards from that spot, that area, maybe less than that. Lots of times, the hens hit the ground, they'll be preening, they'll be doing a little scratching, and the gobbler, he's just amped up, just strutting. And lots of times that's the scenario of a gobbler gobbling pretty good on the limb, and then he hits the ground, gets quiet. As he's got everything he needs. He hits the ground and he's got a hen or two or maybe three, whatever, and he's just sitting there doing his thing. He ain't pecking, he ain't worried about eating. He's just sitting there strutting. And so places like that, where being in the mountains, I've hunted many turkeys that's just on steep.
Yeah.
No rhyme or reason. But as far as looking at topo, I will try to find a bench or a flat area at the base of a mountain. Lots of times it seems like they'll roost right at that transition where the flats, kind of what we call flats, oak flats, where the mountain will turn up and you'll have flats and you'll start getting finger ridges that are tying into the base of the mountain and start running up. Yep. That's a good area for them to roost at.
All right. So another question would be, all right, so say you were talking about how they fly down a lot and then all of a sudden, they're with hens right away. What do you do in that scenario? Because that's always seems to be a difficult thing. And I won't even consider myself, I hunt turkeys a lot, but I'm not a good turkey hunter. So, I run into that scenario a lot where it's a struggle.
Well, I think some people's ears, they just can't hear the frequency, and some people that's getting into it just may not know what they're listening for. But at the point of a turkey hunter's career, when he learns to listen for drumming, harder and more intensity than he does for gobbling, is when he or she will really come into a different level of their game. Saturday was youth day, and me and my father-in-law took a 8-year-old boy. And prime example, we was working our way around a mountain. There were some turkeys gobbling, and 2 or 3 turkeys gobbling off in a distance on the other side on another mountain. And then we thought we was hearing turkeys around the mountain real faint, and we was working our way to them. And then one gobbled or something, and I was like, that turkey's on this side. And we cut a ridge, and about 20 yards from the top of that ridge, I signaled for them to stop and hold up and let me go up to the point of the ridge where the ground breaks over and let me, so I told them, stop. And I eased up there, and I put my ear up over the hill, and I listened, and I thought I heard a drum, and I listened, and I was like, he was right there, 60, 70 yards. And some people may have just plowed over top of that ridge and spooked the turkey. But I felt like the way the ground was laying, that the turkey was closer than what he sounded. And I was thinking to myself, I need to slow down when I get to this point. And when I got up there, I can hear him drumming. And, and I signaled for the little boy to come here. And I got him up there and got him to my legs, and we got set up and we started working the turkey. And, but so many times I'd be walking along and stop and listen and hear a gobbler drumming. You hadn't heard no gobbling or anything, but hear him drumming. And when they're doing that, quite early season when they're henned up, I really try to roost turkeys. If I'm free from family responsibilities and off work, and I can, and it's turkey season, you can bet that I'm out trying to roost a turkey. I know some people don't fool with it. They didn't have much luck or whatever. Roosted certainly does not mean roasted. But if I can start out close to a turkey, that's improving my odds that day. And so if I can get a pin on a gobbler and get him pinned really good, I'll get up early and I'll slip my way in there and get tight to him. And if I'm not exactly sure, I got the pin and where I think he's at, but not sure, I'll hang back and let him gobble. Try to get him to gobble early, so I got some darkness to close the distance and get a little tighter to him. And if he hits the ground and will gobble once in a while, let me know where that's good. But if I can get in that bubble of hearing him drum, then that right there is such a cat and mouse tic-tac-toe game to me is when they're not gobbling, but I can hear him drum. And I know in Pennsylvania, you're not allowed to like stalk turkeys.
Yep.
You have to, it's against the law. And I'm sorry for y'all. That's very unfortunate because that's a big part of my game that's a big part of my game is to be able to reposition and get closer and hear his drumming and work my way in and get in his bubble. And, but that's, normally first part of the year, unless I get lucky and find a hot gobbler that's what you're looking for, a lot of days that's what I'm doing is just trying to get close and tight to a turkey and get in their bubble and hanging there tight with them. And that comes back to if I have a turkey, if I can hear a country and there's nothing else gobbling and I'm close to a turkey, I'm not just going to leave him because he's not gobbling and start covering ground to find when I was younger, I may have. And then there's a time someone may quote this one of these days. I'm not really anybody to quote anything about, but turkey hunting to me is all gut instinct. And that gut instinct is refined and tuned and tweaked through experience. And it can't be taught. It can't be explained. An experienced turkey hunter knows exactly what I'm trying to describe. But, when you're working a turkey or whatever situation, and there's 10,000 things, possibilities scrambling through your brain, and a wire will click. One of those nerve endings in your brain will click, and that's what you do. And what happens. But when your gut tells you that's what you need to do, and there's no way to teach that.
It's a lot of experience and screwing up.
Experience and trying out. Yeah. And you learn more from the ones that get away. And that's the truth. And you learn a lot from when things click and a hunt works out. And you're thinking, man, in your head, you're thinking, how many people could have pulled that off? But, it's so much gut instinct to it, but you can't, and, not everybody had a father or uncle or granddaddy or someone to take them, get them into turkey hunting when they was little. But fortunately I was, and Dad had me in the woods before I could even walk. I couldn't, I'd be 3, 4 years old, 5 years old. And he would, in the evening after he'd grab me up and take me out in the woods and try to roost a turkey. And then, he started hunting me when I was 5, and he always put me first. He didn't let me call a gobbler into him until I was like 22 years old. As I got older and had plenty of turkeys underneath my belt, I'd be like, you're shooting this morning, and he wouldn't say nothing. What he was thinking is, no, you're not. I've killed my share. You're shooting. We'd strike up a gobbler and he'd be right over the bank. We'd be arguing like, you sit in front, you shoot, I'll get back and call.
Yeah.
And he'd be like, no, I've killed my share, you shoot. So he always put me first. And I learned so many hard lessons that I didn't necessarily have to learn on my own. I learned a lot of them on my own, but there's so many things he taught me in the woods that, and after something would happen, he would preach to me and tell me what happened there and what he did and how to try to prevent it or do better on it the next time.
Yeah. And I don't know if this happened with you, but I noticed, like, even when we were talking a little bit back and forth, texting about like our backgrounds, I feel like we have a very similar background with our fathers being able to show us that type of stuff. And I remember when I was young, we were allowed to start hunting when we were 12. I'd went out with my dad before that, but when I was 12, between my dad and my grandfather, they called in 4 turkeys for me within the first week, and I just I screwed them all up. I'd miss or I'd move or do something, and I'm like, oh, this turkey hunting stuff's easy. I just keep, screwing it up. And they're like, no, actually it's not. But, we've gotten really lucky and they've just taught me so much and things that I've been able to, even now, like if me and my dad are able to get together to go out for a hunt, like he always still wants me to be the shooter. I'm like, no, like it's all right. Like I don't really care that much as long as one of us, has the opportunity. But it's, it's just that, I guess, fatherly instinct to do that too.
Yeah, and one of the things that really felt like it put me ahead, and it took me a while. He taught me, and it took a little while in my teens and messing up and saying, he knows what he's talking about. Was one of the things he really drove into me was how you move through the woods, how a diehard, turkey hunter moves through the woods and listens. And so many times, growing up, we'd be slipping along and he would stop, and he'd raise me, I walk, you walk, when I stop, you stop. And he would stop and he'd have his ear cocked listening. And, he'd be like, I hear one drumming. And I'd be like, I don't hear, you're crazy. I don't hear, I didn't say this, but I'm thinking in my head, like, I don't hear no turkey drumming, and he'll get me all set up, and he, his heart's pumping and getting me ready, and he's picking a tree out and getting set up, and he'll call, turkey will gobble. And, he done that so many times to me, but it, taught me a lot about moving through the woods, and my dad's a smaller stature guy. He's like 5'6", and I'm a little shy of 6 foot. And I was always like, when I was I think I was 4th, 5th grade, he went to work one day and, he got dressed, went to work, and he kept kind of pulling his pants up. We're going to find out he was in my pants. I was wearing like 30 pants. And, but, he really preached. I mean, like, get mad about being like, he'd say, he it's funny thinking back now, it kind of makes me laugh, but I'd be trying to put it into words. I'd be moving, following him, and I'd be louder than he was. And he'd turn around and be like, walk fast but light. And I'm thinking, here I'm this little kid thinking, well, how do I move my legs fast and cover grounds fast, but walk light? And I'm, it's kind of, I worked for this guy. I said in another podcast, he was building a rock wall, and I had never done, build a rock wall before. I was like, what do you think of this rock? He's like, boy, you got to think like a rock. I'm thinking, how do you think like a rock? But, you got to find a rock that wants to lay there and not lean forward. But just, kind of the same thing. I always kind of, but yeah. But I couldn't really, there's so many people getting into the sport over the past decade, 2 decades that didn't have a mentor, that, they might have got in their 30s or 40s. And, and I just think, I am who I am, the hunter. I am, the things he taught me when I was younger. And as I got older and got on my own, I took my own twist on things and became into my own hunter. And, but, I'm sure, there's a lot of people listening that, it's like, that's me. I'm in those shoes right now. I'm just getting into turkey hunting and trying to learn. And it may seem like impossible. Like, how these guys are, how these guys consistently killing turkeys, and I'm hunting, trying. And I kind of feel about that way about predator hunting. Like, I haven't done it a lot, but I watch guys that's good at, coyote hunting and working the wind and hunting and not field hunting coyotes, but, I kind of I'm thinking that's kind of how I feel, because these guys kill these coyotes in the brush with shotguns really interests me. And what it is, the more I've dug into it, it's a lot like turkey hunting, but they can smell. But you reposition, you locate them, and find where the dens are, and then you go in early and get tight to them. And I'm hoping in the future I can start getting to go more and implement that, because when I was younger, I thought you just went out in the woods and set up and did, predator sounds, and they came.
That's what I always did.
That's not how it works. Mm-hmm. But and you get lucky once in a while. You get lucky once in a while, but you're not consistent.
No,
and
it's the same way with all kind of hunting. Like whether deer hunting, you get those guys that'll kill a buck. Once every. You might kill a giant deer, but it's once, one off, or like a turkey or anything. It's different when you get the people that are doing it consistently. It's just, I don't know. It cracks me up. And what you're saying about like pulling those things from your dad and then molding in your own, like, so I had my dad, and then my grandfather's, he's 70, I don't know how old right now. And he still kills a bird every year, and he kills an old one, and he doesn't go out till 9:00 in the morning. He likes to hunt them in the mid morning. He's like, I'll let you amateurs play with him in the morning. He's like, I'll go in later on. It's funny.
Well, he's smart because he's paid his dues and he's older, but he also knows if he finds a gobbler gobbling mid morning to lunchtime, if he finds a gobbler that cuts a call off or gobbling on his own, more than likely, lots of times that gobbler is in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. Like, and back when you were talking about getting tight to the roost and like, your gut instinct, I mean, that even comes down to how tight you get. Like, you can't give a number. Like, if I were to ask you how close you're going to get, because it all depends on what the terrain looks like, what the vegetation's like.
Foliage.
Yeah. And like, I found a gobbler, there's 3 gobblers roosted in a clear cut, which blew my mind. It was a wide open new clear cut, and it had a couple trees that were out there, and they were roosting. I'm like, but there was hens too that were in some of the surrounding trees. I'm like, how am I going to get close? So I had to get in there like 2 hours before daylight, and I went and I set up like on this little gas well pad, and 3 of them flew down one way. The one flew down basically not very far in front of me, but the hens landed like right in front of me, and it was a very lucky scenario. But I would never called him in with all those hens, but I was set up there, and he came out strutting, and I was able to shoot him right there before work, and it was awesome. But like, it's hard to explain that to somebody if they haven't done it or don't have that experience to know, like, okay, all right, I can't get real tight if I'm coming in my normal time because of how wide open it is, or, different things along those lines.
Yeah. Strategy and stuff. It's, deer hunt, all of it, all the it's been hit on so much that I almost feel like, there's plenty of resources out there for like strategy, and it's almost like now people want to hear stories.
Yeah, that's what I like to hear.
Like, actual hunts or things like that. But one person that I really connect with listening to about turkey hunting, that it's like I love hearing his podcast because he's old timer. He's getting older now, but it's like birds of the same feather. His hunting style and how he approaches a gobbler, and is Mike Pentecost. He's done two podcasts with the Southern Outdoorsman, and like if you hear him, if you listen to those, like there's someone there, and so many things he says relates to me and how I was raised, taught how to work turkeys, and he does a great job. And Mike gets to rambling, and he does a good job with telling about different scenarios and everything. I just kind of want to throw that out there. Also, not to take away from East Meets West.
No.
If there's anybody,
Southern Outdoorsman is a great podcast. I love listening to those guys.
If there's any younger guys out there that want to really hear a turkey killer, talk about some strategy, Mike puts it in a good perspective too. But man.
So this is a very open-ended question too, but what are some memorable, give me a memorable hunt in your mind, whether it's the meaning behind the hunt, whether it's how the hunt laid out. I want to hear one of these stories. I know you have a ton of them.
Yeah, it's a bunch. One gobbler, which it isn't really much to the story. I made like 2 springs ago, I made a trip the first time I went to Georgia, and the weather wasn't great the first day, and I kind of kept working my way across the state, checking places, making little short walks, stopping, and never heard a gobble the first day. The second day, I parked on some public land and slept in the truck, and it hammered down the rain till about 9-10 o'clock in the morning. And then as soon as the rain stopped, I started hunting, made a big walk. And when as soon as the rain's over with, the brush is soaking wet, so you might as well have been hunting in the rain. And I made a big long walk, still no gobbles, no turkey sign. So I'm thinking, because I was back up in the mountains and it was pretty dead. It was kind of like walking on the moon. I was like, I got to sit down and look at these maps and I got to find some private property, a cattle field or something that butts up to the national forest. So I found these old cattle fields, and the government ran around the side of the mountain behind it. And this was like 2:00 in the evening. Still, I've been there 2 days, hadn't heard a gobble. And a hardtop road actually ran down the valley, and you could stop and call across the private property onto the mountain. And I was thinking, well, if I get one to gobble, I'll mark him. Then I'll go back to the access and then hunt my way around to the gobbler. Well, I stopped a couple places, listened, called, hadn't heard nothing. And I drove past this trailer, real nice guy, guy had he took care of his place. And I used to have a vehicle, and he was sitting on his front porch. And he was looking right at the cattle field and the mountainside was right in his face. And I was like, I bet he spends a lot of time on his porch. And so I thought, well, I'll get down here at the end of this national forest. I don't get a gobbler gobble. And I come back up the road. If he's still outside, I'm going to pull in there and talk to him, be friendly like. And I pulled in and still hadn't heard a gobble. And I, introduced myself and talked to him. He's just nice as be. And I said, I told him what I was doing and, where I was from. And I said, do you happen, while you're sitting out here on the porch in the mornings and stuff, do you hear turkeys gobbling over the mountain? He's like, yeah, I hear them gobble every once in a while. And every once in a while, every other day, I see a big old gobbler out there in that field strutting. So I'm thinking in my head, it was running 100 miles an hour. I'm like, I was like, that's the best lead that I have. And, so I done have my mind made up the rest of the day till dark that I was going to hike in there, whether I killed anything or not or hurt anything or not. That's where I was going to go the rest of the day until dark and try to roost one. I said, you mind if I call real quick? And he said, no, go ahead. So always when I'm trying to strike up a gobbler, I'll start out soft, and then you can always get louder. So then there towards the end, I think I was using a crystal pot call. And then I got loud and cut. And nothing, 5, 4, and when a turkey ain't real amped up, many times you'll call, you won't hear nothing, you'll be ready to go to walk, and it's kind of like a delayed gobble, and then he'll let it out. Well, I was getting, 4, 5, 6 seconds went by, and I was getting ready to, say, well, thank you and whatnot, and he gobbled. And I said, you hear him? He said, yeah. He said he's up there, he knew where he was, he knew the mountain like the back of his hand. And I called a couple more times. He never did gobble. He just gobbled at one time at like 2:00. I said, well, thank you. And I drove down the road like 1.5 miles or 2 miles, which by the crow wasn't too far, but to get cut around the side of the mountain to the gobbler up and down, it was a ways. And I said, well, I ought to be able to, in my mind, I was thinking, I ought to be able to find a gobbler before I get to this turkey. And I'm going through there and they're scratching everywhere and a good sign. And I'm thinking, man, I ought to be able to strike up a gobbler before I get to that turkey. But I eventually make it all the way to my pen where I marked the gobbler, still no gobbling. And I get set up, no gobbles still, make some soft calls. And I sat there about 45 minutes, an hour or nothing. I said, well, there was a slight drop off. The mountain kind of come down steep, flattened out a little bit, and ran down for a long ways. Then it kind of dropped off again to the private property. And I said, well, maybe that gobbler worked his way off the mountain when I called over there at that guy's house. Maybe he worked his way downhill. So I said, well, I'll slip one down the mountain and get to where that ground breaks over and then set up again and listen. So I work my way down, get set up, and I call a couple times, don't hear nothing, and I'm sitting there. 10, 15 minutes go by, and the leaves were the sun came out, and the wind kind of started blowing, and the leaves went from soaking wet to bone dry, loud and crunchy, sunshine shining. And then I was sitting there, and no drumming, no gobbling. I just heard footsteps, and he came in silent, never gobbled, not a drum, nothing, and I killed that gobbler. And so I'd been there. I was just thinking to myself, maybe it was luck, but that gobbler, I remember him because it was just like my back was against the wall. I was somewhere I'd never been before, out of state. I had another day left, and I didn't really feel like anything was going to work out, and managed to kill a gobbler that only gobbled one time, which was 2 hours earlier, and he came in silent. And So that one, I felt like I earned him a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's so tough too, like knowing when to go and when to sit, and that's all. If people had that figured out, it'd be kind of easier. But
Well, I done made my mind up. I was going to stay in there till dark, and I knew, I done committed to that area because it was hard to get in there. So I was able to be more patient because I knew that's what my plan was, and I knew he was there. And evening hunting, I've had some good evening hunts, like 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock. 5 o'clock on is that like it get cool in the morning, get hot, get almost summer like hot in the day. Later in season, and then about 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, that sun starts dropping a little bit, and in the bottom of the hollers, you feel that cool air start moving in, and like 5 o'clock on. If you get a gobbler to gobble, it's like, he's in trouble. But so I was thinking maybe once that temperature started dropping off and that sun started setting, maybe he would fire up or something. So, yeah, that's kind of what I was kind of prepared to set in there for a while.
Yeah,
because I just didn't have any better leads. That was the first turkey. I knew he was there somewhere, so I was going to try to. My goal, of course, I was hoping to kill a turkey, but if anything, maybe I could roost him and give me something to go off of on my last morning to hunt. And so that was the plan, and it worked out.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a cool story too. I like that you stopped and talked to that guy, and you had that thought process. Like, he probably sits out there quite a bit, like.
Yeah. Like I was like, if there's turkeys gobbling in this country, I got a feeling he'll probably know if his ears are still good. Maybe he didn't run machinery or logged or something.
Yeah.
All his life, and some of them older guys, they can't hardly hear you. I was like, maybe, but he heard that his turkey was way up on the mountain, and he heard him gobble, and he knew exactly where he was. But I'm not scared to stop and ask for permission. Use your manners and just be honest with them and tell them what you're doing. And you get turned down. Sometimes you get luck or just information. I talk to people at gas stations, and lots of times, people, be real friendly. You ain't got to tell them. Lots of times you'll be in there and turkey hunting close 1, 2 o'clock in the day. You might be getting some ice for the cooler and going somewhere else. And someone say, "You a turkey hunter? You had any luck?" And I get telling you, and that's tell you go a place to go try.
Yeah.
I'm tagged out, and there was 2 or 3 gobblers still gobbling up in that country. Sometimes you get lucky like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool. You'll be heading out then. This weekend's the opener for you, right? I mean, by the time this airs here, it'll be it already had happened, but that's this weekend, right?
Yes. Season comes in Virginia. The season always starts the second Saturday of April every year, and youth weekend's always the first weekend in April.
Okay.
And season always comes in the second Saturday in April. It runs for 5 weeks. The first 3 weeks is noon shut off. In the last 2 weeks, you can hunt all day. It's looking like it's calling for like 3/4 of an inch of rain Saturday. So, but I think in the morning, I think it's not supposed to move in until like midday. So,
okay.
As long as it's not a downpour set in rain, if it's just a drizzle, I'll be out there. And if I'm out there and get caught in some downpour rain, then if I'm a mile from the truck or something, I won't be in no hurry. I'm already soaked. So, and we've killed some turkeys. And the thing about hunting the mountains is it's national forest, mature timber. There's no wildlife open. It's not like you can get in the truck and go ride around and spots them out in the field strutting and then park the truck and make a move on them. These turkeys are woods turkeys. So, they probably will gravitate towards those open oak flats, logging roads, maybe a recent clear cut or an old logging landing or something like that. But we've killed some turkeys, and I know like 2 was in the middle of thunderstorms over the years, just thunder cracking, rain hammering down. Like, of course, that's not going to happen every time, but if you find one gobbling, and that type of stuff, he's in trouble if he's, answering you in that.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of luck in the rain, light rains. I'm not scared of, if I'm off work, like say, if I'm off work and free from family responsibilities, I'm going to be in there. As long as it's not just one of those days where it's just a set in downpour rain. You wake up in the morning, it's dumping the rain and rain calling for rain all day. You know, if I catch rain, I'm going to try to make a move.
Awesome. Well, good luck to you. I'm excited to see it. Hopefully, you'll kill one, and then I'll be able to use that picture on the artwork for the podcast, and it'll just add to the whole story.
Yeah, it'd be cool. You never, it's always Tom Weedle. I think that's how you say his last name, Weddle. He's from Pennsylvania. I think he's one of the first people that completed the Super Slam. And I think he said, every year going in the season, you got butterflies in your stomach like you'd never be able to call on a turkey.
Yep.
It's like until you get on a gobbler and he comes in and it works out, you got that feeling like, it's a possibility it could be a third week of season and hadn't killed a gobbler. That stuff can happen, easily if you're limited on time.
Yeah.
But there's so many things to talk about. Listeners, new hunters, they want to absorb everything in a sponge, and it's hard to put it into words. That's why that's like the little quote there that I say that it's gut instinct and it can't be taught. You gotta, and I think maybe something to end on is, when something goes wrong, don't fly off mad and just storm out of the woods, and sit down and think about what happened. Like, what I do wrong, admit you done something wrong, and what could you done different. And the next time you run in that situation, it's there in that memory bank in your head. It could be something that happened 5 years ago, but you may not run in that situation for a long time, but you'll end up in a similar terrain situation, or the gobblers acting in a similar way, and and that little spark in your brain will say, well, it'll come back. So just try to learn from those mistakes and fine tune that gut instinct.
Awesome. I love it. Devin, thanks so much for coming on and talking with me. If anyone wants to follow along with any of your stuff, do you have any place that they can check that out?
Yeah. My Instagram is open to anyone. I don't have it set on like where you have to request. It's just wide open for me. I don't consider myself an influencer or anything like that. I'm just a normal old guy. But it's Devin D89. It's my name, DEVIN D89.
Awesome. Well, everyone should check it out. And then you have your Facebook page, Mountain Hunters of Virginia, right? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, Virginia Mountain Buck.
Yeah,
Hunters.
that's it. Yeah, I love watching that page as well. A lot of really cool people on there.
Yeah, it simmers down, in the spring and summer, but when after turkey season's over in the middle of summer, start heating back up, and mountain hunters, talking.
Yeah,
buck hunting.
Yep. Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on again, and we'll stay in touch throughout the season.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. Hopefully I put something in the words that somebody can, grab something from.
Yeah, you definitely did.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of East Meets West Hunt with your host, Beau Martonik. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit eastmeetswesthunt.com, Facebook at East Meets West Outdoors, and Instagram at East Meets West Hunt. If you enjoyed today's episode, please review and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.